Photoshop versus Adobe Experience Design versus Sketch. Hello, in this lecture I want to shed some light on what's the best app designing software. The conclusion is this: I prefer Photoshop. With that in mind, you can skip to the next lecture if you're not interested in the details. Okay, assuming you're still here, I look at the market and I see four big columns: Photoshop, Adobe Experience Design, or XD for short, Sketch, and finally other programs like Affinity Designer, Figma, InVision Studio. First, let's talk about Sketch. It's a decent app designing program that's catching speed, but I'm not interested in it for one simple reason: it's not available on Windows. I will order an iMac and I'll use Sketch intensively to figure out if it's worth switching over, but as it stands, I can't use it. And that's because it doesn't run on Windows, nor will it ever be available on this platform. I'm currently waiting for the new generation of iMacs to come out, but Apple is sure taking its time. In the meantime, I don't want to spend $3,500 on an outdated machine that's considerably slower than my existing rig. Another downside to Sketch is the fact that I'm already married to Adobe's lineup. I use Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, After Effects, Audition, and so on. But for my students, I will try Sketch as soon as I get an iMac to see if it's a better option. So that's the story on Sketch, and that's why it's not going to be used at all in this course. I simply can't use it. Category 4. All the other programs. These are not mainstream products, so only a small percentage of designers are actually using them. This means there's less content for them. Not only in the way of tutorials, plugins, or extensions, but also regarding discussions. Just look at Photoshop. Just about any problem, bug, or issue you encounter is seriously debated and solved. You don't get that with these alternatives. So for those reasons, we won't be using any of these alternatives. Having said that, I might do a standalone course for any of them, including Sketch, if I find they're serious competitors that can actually dethrone Photoshop or XD. As of right now, I doubt it. Moving on, comparing 1 and 2 is like comparing apples to oranges. XD was built from the ground up for UI projects, so that's web design and mobile app design. That's one of its advantages. It also works solely with vectors. It's lightweight, it's blazingly fast, and it has some awesome features that can seriously speed up your design process. Just take a look at this example where I can populate a list in just a few clicks. That streamlines your work, and it's not just a gimmick. I personally use it in all my projects. Speed is the key word here. The downside is it's still under development. It's been out of beta for quite some time, but there are lots of points that need addressing. I've used it intensively, and I found I love some of its features, but I seriously dislike some parts. Adobe is constantly updating it, so it's going to get better and better, but right now I can't say I'm happy enough to completely switch over. It's missing a lot of things that are present in Photoshop. So that's XD in a nutshell, a good, fast program that's still in the works as far as I'm concerned. Photoshop is great. It has tons of features, it's predictable, it's comfortable, and you can easily design beautiful apps with it. It's one of the most well-known programs out there. I could go on and on about its positive sides, but here's the elephant in the room. The single biggest problem is performance. When working on a considerable project, Photoshop slows down dramatically. Let me translate what this means. Something like this is considered a big project in my book. Over 3,000 layers, 800 groups, and 100 screens. This is a medium-sized app. My current workstation is a 7700K that's running at 4.8 GHz with 64 GB of RAM, a 1080 Ti graphics card, and one of the fastest SSDs on the market, the 1TB 960 Pro from Samsung. This is a monster rig, worth well over $3,000 excluding my displays. In this project, I still have trouble panning around, for example. It's choppy, unresponsive, and it's quite annoying. There are all sorts of techniques and things you can do to make it run smoother, but you have to know what you're doing from the start. Even with the best possible approach, you'll still have performance issues. So it seems like a race between XD and Photoshop. One is incredibly fast, but it's still in the works, while the other is the giant of the design world, but it's also painfully slow at times. Jet ski versus ocean liner. But the good news is, you don't have to choose. We'll start designing in Photoshop since it's familiar ground. That's going to be the first part of this course. Then we'll also use Adobe Experience Design. What's great is that you can import your PSDs into XD and you can pick up just about where you left off. You open up XD, you import the PSD, and it will automatically convert the file. At this point, it doesn't give you a perfect project, but it's more than enough to get going. So there's no big decision in your hands. Design in whatever feels best to you. I'll teach you how to work in both programs, and you can switch whenever you like. It felt it was my duty to let you know the downsides of each column, so for transparency's sake, I decided to do this comparison. No matter if you want to stick to Photoshop or try something new, this course will teach you just about everything you need to know to design, prototype, and test your apps. Let's get to it.